Good evening and welcome to the August 12th, 2013 Burnsville Planning Commission Burnsville Planning Commission meeting. Welcome, commissioners, staff, everybody in our viewing and listening audience. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Any changes from commissioners? Staff?
Just one, Mr. Chair. I did hear from Commissioner Tahiri. He's going to be absent this evening.
All right. Thank you very much. With that change, I would look to entertain a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Commissioner Singh.
Seconded.
Seconded by Vice Chair Julik. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes 5-0. Next item on the agenda is the election of the chair.
Mr. Chair, I have the distinct honor of nominating John Corey to be the chair of the Planning Commission for the next year.
We have a nomination. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Okay. Nominated by Commissioner Singh, seconded by Commissioner Brederick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes, I guess 4-0. Vote on my own nomination, but I just want to say thank you, and I look forward to serving for the next year, and taking over, keeping, I guess, going from my interim duties to this full-time position. I'm honored, and thank you for your votes.
Mr. Chair, just a friendly correction, is 5-0.
Okay. Well, I wasn't going to vote for myself,
Oh.
so that's why. That's why I said that. If it could be 5-0, I didn't vote for myself.
It's your chair. It's your decision, Mr. Chair. Should you choose?
I'll call it 4-0.
Okay.
Thank you. The next is the election of the vice chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to appoint, to continue Mr. Julik as a vice chair, only as a permanent vice chair.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Bradrick, seconded by Commissioner Singh. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0.
5-0.
Mr. Chair, may I have an opportunity to say congratulations to you and to Pat for being the substantive chair and vice chair of the Planning Commission. I think commissioners have full confidence in both of you. You stepped in when the void was created, when our chair left, and you fulfilled the responsibility exceedingly well. And I personally, I feel that you will continue to do a good job and lead this Planning Commission, and so we can provide the best of advice and recommendation to the City Council. So congratulations to Pat and to Corey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is appointment of a Heart of the City representative from the Planning Commission.
And I will nominate Jim Bradrick.
Second.
Nominated by Vice Chair Julik, seconded by Commissioner Singh. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes 5-0.
5-0.
The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the July 22nd, 2013 meeting. Any changes by commissioners?
None from me, Chair.
All right. Thank you. Any changes by staff?
None from staff.
All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Vice Chair Julik,
I'll second that.
seconded by Commissioner Bradrick. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? That passes 5-0. Item number 4 on the agenda is a public hearing. Ordinance amending Title 10, Chapters 7 and 30A of the Burnsville City Code regarding vehicle display pads. Mr. Slania.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, you'll recall this was discussed by the Commission at a meeting in July. There was some discussion centered around this. For those of you who don't recall, this was an opportunity to relieve some screening and buffer requirements for certain display pads related to products, vehicles, etc., that are seeking a conditional use permit or PUD for outdoor storage and display. As we discussed, there was a project in 2011 that sparked this discussion. It happened to be an automobile dealership. They wanted display pads, and the ordinance requires that be screened with landscaping. Somewhat counterintuitive to what the applicant was seeking, and thus staff did some research, brought it back to the Planning Commission with some proposed language. That was back in July. We have revised that language slightly so the Planning Commission this evening could hold the public hearing, and should you choose, move it on to the City Council. Let me just get to the details. The discussion from the July 8th meeting was that the Planning Commission would like the display pads separated from the parking and the drive aisles. Let me get to the that they be separated from the parking and the drive aisles within the standard parking lot, that they be, these display pads, should they have this exemption, that they be orientated toward the right-of-way rather than the neighboring properties, and they should also satisfy the applicable parking setbacks. So they aren't necessarily closer to the property line or to the street or anything else. They are just exempt from the landscaping and the screening requirements. That is the revised language staff prepared tonight. It would be applicable to Section 10746 and then 1038-8 relating to the landscaping. Again, we put the same language in there so it is there's continuity within the ordinance. With that, Commissioners, we can certainly go through some of the images and some more history on this, but I will stand for questions, and it is a public hearing.
Mr. Julick?
Thank you, Chair. Just a question on definition, or maybe if it's clear enough. In I think 10-7-46A2.A, the new wording says display pads shall be physically separated from parking lots and drive aisles. I think conceptually I understand what you mean there, but I think we've seen some examples where, what does the term physically separated mean? Because sometimes it'll be like connected to the tarmac of the existing parking. Mm-hmm. What constitutes physical separation, I guess?
That would be a staff or planning commission interpretation. We view it as making sure it is not easily accessible by the customers or the clients or the employees. Something where there may be a curb, there may be actual green space in between there, a combination of that.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Singh?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Chris, this will still require a conditional use permit. Absolutely. So they have to come back to the Planning Commission.
Typically, this would be a situation where display pads from here moving forward would be bundled into the conditional use permit. If someone was very driven to put some pads in where they've already got a conditional use permit, it would be an amendment to that, and we would address this then.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? That's time. All right. This is a public hearing, and at this time I would like to open the public hearing for any comments or questions, if anybody would like to step forward and do that. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and open for discussion. Commissioner Singh?
Mr. Chair, I think I'm satisfied with the wording of the change. We discussed this at length during that work session, and I think staff has done a very good job in bringing to us language that all of us can support. So I'm supporting this, and hopefully other commissioners will too.
Thank you, Commissioner Singh. Commissioner Julik?
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Commissioner Singh. I think it addresses the needs of business that were identified as for display pads as kind of that are the standard code didn't address, and so it addresses the needs of business, and I think it still protects the general public and neighboring properties to the same level as they were protected before. So I think the staff came up with a very good solution.
Thank you. Commissioner Julik, your comments?
It should be noted, Mr. Chair, that the businesses, neighboring businesses, or residential property will not be impacted in any way with this new language we added, or we are adding.
Very, very good point, Commissioner Singh. Thank you for noting that.
I would be in agreement. I think Commissioner Zulik at our work session recommended that, we have the language about right-of-way only and not towards additional property. And I think that's worded very well, so I'm also in support of this.
Thank you, Commissioner Broderick. With that, I would entertain a motion at this time.
I'll take a stab at that. I would
Commissioner Broderick?
like to have the wish of the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council for approval of the ordinance amendment to Title 10, Chapter 7, 30A of the Burnsville City Code regarding vehicle display pads as presented.
Right. Moved by Commissioner Broderick. Second. Any second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Thomas. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. Fifth item on the agenda is a public hearing. Ordinance amending Title 10, Chapter 12 and 14 of the Burnsville City Code regarding residential metal roofs.
Thank you, Commissioners. We're going to discuss the ordinance amending metal roofs for residential for single-family and double-family areas. This was also discussed at the work session in July 8th. And in that work session, there was some talk about you would permit metal roof for single and two-family homes, prohibit galvanized and unfinished metal, and prohibit exposed fasteners. And the Commission was supportive of using standing seam. Just to go over a little bit of background real quick with metal roofs, they come in many different materials: galvanized, non-galvanized, copper, aluminum, and tin. And then there are also many different styles it comes in, and many different colors as well, with tile and shakes shown on the screens right now with the different colors in that. Also standing seam and shingles. And then slate as well. It's very adaptable to solar panels, and some research was done and found that noise concerns are not a major issue with metal roofs, especially if they are installed properly. Also, there was a survey gone out to market cities and other cities in the metropolitan area and found that all of the 15 cities that respond to the survey allow metal roofs based on the building code. So with that, this is another image of a metal roof here in Burnsville, and then one in the neighboring cities, and you see there's it looks like a shingle and then a tile roof in this image as well. And then here is the proposed language. And with this proposed language, the City of Burnsville is proposing no galvanized or unfinished steel or aluminum will be permitted. The staff has concerns with the standing seam. The concerns follow that it seems to be commercial or industrial look in the residential, and it isn't always compatible with the surrounding area. So this would hope to be up for a little discussion with the Planning Commission. And the wording is the same with both single-family and two-family residential districts. So with that, if there's any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Holly. I just wanted to acknowledge that you're doing the presentation instead of Mr.
Yes.
Slania.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Mr. Chair, just kind of for a clarification, the wording says no galvanized or unfinished steel or aluminum materials are permitted. However, even if you're doing steel, the coating to prevent rust is galvanized coating or aluminum. So when we say if you're not permitting those materials, actually those materials will be there. So we need to clarify that. I'm just reading, I did some research from the Metal Roof resources, and it says a metal roof will not increase the likelihood of lightning, blah, blah. However, if your home were hit, no, I'm sorry about that. Today, metal roofing systems are built to last. Steel metal roofing has a metallic coating made of either zinc or a combination of zinc and aluminum. And I'm pretty sure anyone who is going to install a metal roof will have those materials on their shakes or shingles or what.
I'm just wondering, Commissioner Singh, if and I'm just throwing this out basically for discussion, does the part where it says no galvanized or unfinished steel or aluminum materials are permitted, I wonder if the galvanized or unfinished takes care of that, because there obviously would be galvanized and there's aluminum in it, but I'm wondering if the fact that it talks about unfinished takes care of that concern.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, and if I can just interject, yeah, the intent was that aluminum without any protection, steel without any protective coating, not be allowed. So if there is a rust-free coating or a mixed composite mixture that's put on these, that is what we're looking for, rather than the unfinished straight out of the box aluminum or steel.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that the material, the shingle or whatever thing we use, shake or whatever form, will have metallic sealing comprising of galvanized or zinc. And then we are saying in the language, no galvanized or unfinished steel or aluminum materials are permitted. You're not permitting any of those materials, but in fact, you will get those materials there. So,
But I think, excuse me, I agree with what you're saying. Like, as worded, I think it does say that. So
Yeah.
maybe we can just modify the wording a little
wordsmith
bit.
it.
If it says no galvanized or galvanized steel, just put steel between galvanized and or unfinished steel or unfinished aluminum materials are permitted. I think that was your actual intent.
that makes sense.
Right? So nothing that's unfinished and nothing that's galvanized as the finish.
Correct.
I think, was that,
Yes. Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Staff will make that change.
Any other comments or questions on that, Commissioner Thomas?
I think, I'd like to hear you read that back, Chris, but I'm thinking maybe even instead of materials, it's just finish. You're really talking about finish. The materials will still be galvanized if we're really splitting hairs. It's just the finish that we're talking about.
Okay, so just for discussion purposes, no unfinished steel or aluminum would be permitted. We could do it that way.
right? But you do allow aluminum, correct?
Correct.
I don't think it's the best application here, but
Under this language, we would. If that's a concern and we want to just stick with steel, we could make that adjustment. But I think if Planning Commission's comfortable, staff would be comfortable saying no unfinished steel or aluminum.
Yeah, my, excuse me, Chair.
Sure. Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. And sorry, I'm not familiar enough with the materials as much, but I heard on an ad today that with the recent hail damage, the aluminum, it was a car ad basically, but it said cars that had aluminum components dented the most with the recent hail damage, and so my concern would be that, and again, I don't know one way or another, but maybe it's something that staff could investigate prior to it going to council, if aluminum is appropriate, because I think it's a little bit softer than the steel, and it may not hold up to some of the pounding that we would get here in our locale. So just something you may want to check into.
Yeah, I agree with the language here. However, the research is telling me that the coating on this will have galvanized or zinc.
Okay.
So I don't want to get caught after we pass this thing or we make a recommendation to the city council and they approve it and then something comes up.
Just as a thought, do we want to say? To me, it's what's viewable by the public is what we're really getting at, in the sense. So I'm wondering if you want to say no exposed, galvanized, unfinished steel, aluminum materials are permitted.
Yeah, you wouldn't see the galvanized
Right.
when the shingle is treated. You wouldn't see it. So
Right,
I think
it's exposed.
I think that will work.
If you just say no exposed, galvanized, unfinished steel, or aluminum materials are permitted, that way it'd be exposed so you could see it, and if obviously it's underneath or incorporated into the materials, but it's not exposed. Would that address the issue?
Yes.
And then it's only adding one word. I think.
Yeah, that's fine with me.
Okay.
And then, thank you, Chair. One other comment. In the, I think in the work session, we talked about, I think there was I would say there were varying opinions, of course, but we did talk a little bit about standing seam designs and exposed fasteners, and I think my general recollection of the discussion was I think most people were against the exposed fasteners, but were open to the standing seam.
Yes.
Has that had further discussion with staff? Or?
That was the consensus from the work session.
Yep.
And as staff was preparing this and moving forward, we just wanted to bring that back as a discussion point, because we did get comments from other staff and other departments that it does give a more of a commercial or industrial feel to some of these buildings. It's certainly within the purview of the commission to strike that language or leave it in.
Well, there are two things. One is the standing seam design, which, in my opinion, I support. But you can have that. You can have standing seam design. But the other part, the clips, or what you call them, those fasteners, I think we should not have roofs with those things exposed.
And I apologize. There was consensus to eliminate the exposed
Okay.
fasteners. It was just
Chair,
Any other thoughts on-
typically the exposed fasteners would be associated with a much less expensive roof.
Sure.
A nail with a rubber, to seal it. So I definitely support that. And we did have some conversations based around standing seams, but I also respect some of the thoughts of the staff. I did drive by a couple of homes in town and look at them, and so I could be supportive of it as it's written per staff.
Any other thoughts on the standing seam aspect of this, Commissioner Thomas?
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't present at the work session, so I was a little bit behind the discussions here. But I looked at the report, and I agree with the exposed fasteners. We should not permit those. Standing seam designs, I was a little surprised in my research that was excluded. I would suggest that standing seam designs be allowed.
my position, I think, is I would vote to support the standing seam designs and keep the exposed fasteners out. That would be my thought on this.
I think we've all agreed on that.
Should we, do I need to have a motion to change?
Public hearing.
Yes, but we'll have the public hearing, but
Yes, the motion by the commissioner should be to strike standing seam from the language proposed.
Mr. Chair, on a point of order, I don't think that's necessary. We haven't recommended anything yet,
right.
so we don't need to have a motion to undo
I'm
what
just
we haven't done.
I'm just wondering when we get to that point. As stated, this is a public hearing. I would like to open the public hearing at this time for anybody who wishes to come forward and comment or ask any questions. Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and open it for further discussion with commissioners.
Do you have a quick, Chris, do you, the other cities, are other cities, everyone's allowing standing seams, so we'd be the only community that is denying that, or can you clarify that for me? Thanks, sorry, you just sat down, so I thought I'd get you right back up.
That's fine. The city of Rosemont was the only one that had replied saying that they do not allow standing seam, but they did not specify they did not allow standing seam, but yet they only allowed shingled. In their building code, they made that clarification to say, building code does not specify materials, but must be shingled, so corrugated metal or standing seam metals are not allowed, is what Rosemont currently has in place. And that is the only city that had responded back saying no standing seam.
Okay. And Chair, and I can be supportive, the only concern, and I did mention this in the work session, is when you look at non-standing seam, there's a bunch of product out there today that look like shingles and shakes that would, I think how Chris put it, fit into the neighborhood. I'm not sure how he worded that. But there is a lot of opportunity in a standing seam, just hundreds and hundreds and thousands of different colors. And then we've got a bit of a stickler as to if someone wants to put a roof on that really does not fit into the neighborhood. But Chris, we had some conversations about there's some gray area there about how that works, how you would handle that if someone came and wanted to put a pink roof or a bright yellow roof that's not going to fit into the neighborhood. You feel like you've got something that you can deal with there?
Commissioners, Mr. Chair, from a color standpoint, absolutely. We've had good luck with the way our ordinance is worded towards color, and I think it just comes. I don't want to say personal preference, but you know your aesthetic view. If standing seam is too commercial in nature for single and two-family homes, and the commission was consistent at the last meeting that to allow it.
I think the next topic talks about the compatibility issue. So I think at the work session, I think staff conveyed that they don't really have any problems enforcing or addressing the compatibility issues as a general rule. Is it
Correct.
Okay. All right. I have one other comment also, if I may,
Sure,
Chair.
go ahead.
Early on in the write-up, Ms. Hawley, I think you discuss that this is in the single and two-family metal roof areas, and that it's somewhat addressed in the business area or for in other districts. And it's I can't find the text here, but I was concerned just the way you wrote it here. I think you said. In comparison, Chapter 19, the business and mixed districts, and 23 industrial districts are more detailed and acceptable types of roof material. Will there be any concern that I look at the text you have there for 10-19-1A, and it reads that roofs which are exposed or an integral part of the building aesthetic shall be constructed only of commercial grade asphalt shingles, wood shingles, standing seam metal, slate, tile, or copper. It doesn't allow other types of metal on the roofs in the Chapter 19 section. So if we're allowing the shingle type metal, I'm just saying that standing seam metal in Chapter 19, you might want to review that section there, that it doesn't give businesses the flexibility that it gives the homeowners. And maybe that's fine, I just don't know.
That's, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, a good way to read it. We hadn't made that connection, but let us talk about it at staff level, and if we need to adjust it, we can certainly bring back an ordinance amendment to that, or at some point in the future.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments or concerns? Do we have a consensus then on allowing the standing seams but not permitting the exposed fasteners? Is
I'm
that,
for that.
yes, that's
Thanks.
Chair, I can support that. I was just concerned about the color thing, and
okay.
just wanted to talk about that.
All right, and then adding the word exposed between no and galvanized, unfinished steel, aluminum.
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Would the motion then to change that be appropriate, or
It would. The motion can be with changes as discussed.
okay?
No,
And-
but Mr. Chair, we have not taken action on it. That's a recommendation that came from staff.
Sure.
So we can change the recommendation from staff.
No, he's just saying for mechanics, how to do it. When we make the motion, we can just make the motion.
okay.
I motion to approve it with
Right.
the changes
With
as
the
discussed
changes.
and agreed in the meeting, something like that.
Correct.
So we have to have a public hearing. Right, did I miss that?
Yep.
It was-
With that, then, I would entertain the motion at this time.
Mr. Chair, let me see if I can find it here now. Come on. Mr. Chair, I beg to move that the Planning Commission recommend to the City Council approval of the amendment for metal roofs to be added to the zoning ordinance for single-family zones. The language with the necessary changes include the criteria that no unfinished or galvanized steel, aluminum, or standing seam should be used. Exposed. Got to put in the word exposed somewhere in there, right?
Make it, yeah. I think it should be no exposed galvanized
That's right.
or unfinished
Sorry,
steel,
Mr. Ward.
aluminum are permitted. The standing seam designs are permitted, but there are no exposed fasteners that are permitted.
Thank you for the friendly correction. So.
Motion by Commissioner Singh,
Second.
second by Commissioner Thomas. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, that passes 5-0 with the corrections or changes, modifications. Number 6, any updates? Commissioners, any updates? Staff?
Mr. Chair, I just want to point out both these two ordinance amendments are going to the City Council for their August 20th meeting.
Thank you very much. That's very important to get out.
And we've got a draft agenda for the August 26th meeting. We'll be coming back with some more information on the I-3 district. The commission asked for more information and some other details, and we'll be back with that.
All right, thank you. With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Julik,
Second?
seconded by Commissioner Bradrick. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes 5-0. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.